Okay, another topic to discuss is passing arrays as arguments. So this is like you just learned about methods in classes. You gotta like build on this stuff, right? So how would you pass an array as an argument to another method? So what I've done is I've created a static method here. It returns an integer. The integer it returns is going to be the sum. So we're going to repeat what we just did, except we're going to make it a method. The name of the array is total array. Just a review here, what's the signature? The signature is total array int array. You know, it's an integer array argument. Anything that's an integer array passed to this would fit that signature. Okay. So, how would you pass an array? And again, it's static because this is just like, we're not going to instantiate an array demo object. Everything's just working out of main. So when you don't instantiate something as an object, you'll need static methods because the methods need to exist even if you don't have an object to call them with. So review that part on static methods if that doesn't make sense. It's something you kind of need to know. But the short of it is that if you do an example like this where everything's just in main, you don't create any objects, then you need to make it static. Anyway, so the way you pass to an array as an argument is just by the name. That's all you really need. So we can do this. We can say system.out.println the sum is, and it's going to be an integer, so %d, sum's an integer. And then what we do is we pass to total array the name of the array. Now we have to actually put the logic in there. It has to be printf. Of course, not print line. So we got to put the logic in here to do the summation. We've already done that. You memorized this, right? Start with some kind of counter accumulator variable like sum, and then you say int I gets 0. I is less than what? I is less than whatever array it is. So that variable is going to have a length to it that's built in, so you don't ever have to think about the actual size beforehand. This is different from like C, where you have to like send that separately as a separate argument, like tell it how big it is, so it knows how long to loop for. Anyway, it's kind of nice. Object-oriented stuff has these conveniences built in. Otherwise, you just do it like you did before. You know, sum plus equals array sub I. When the loop's done, the value of sum will be the total, and that's what's returned. Pretend that this function call right here becomes whatever this value is. So it'll print out the sum. Do we remember what it was? Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So the cool thing about this is that if you have any integer array, so let's make another one. I regret this probably. Let's copy both of these things so we don't have to redo all of it. Call this amounts, and we'll make them like smaller. Right, 15, 13, -4. Throw a negative in there. There's nothing wrong with that. We can have two 14s in a row if we want. We can have a 0, and we can have a 7, 13, whatever. So if we want to total up this amount, notice actually, let's make this a little different from before. Keep the two 14s, but I want to make it quite a bit. There's only 3 values. This is just to demonstrate that arrays know how big they are themselves. So just pass the name of the array. And I didn't talk about this specifically, but when you create the method, the parameter has to be int square brackets and then some variable name. Notice this is called array up here. The array down here is called numbers. This one's called amounts. It doesn't matter what the names are. And I have to talk about that just slightly, a little bit. So this seems reasonable, right? That's basically 10 plus 14, so 24. the thing that I need to talk about is, and I don't remember if I talked about this with methods, but that methods are called only by passing by value in Java, and this is really kind of hard to describe, but you're only passing a value as your arguments. So amounts, what does amounts have in it? It has a memory address. The value that is that memory address is what you're passing. So when you create numbers here, it'll set aside some amount of memory to hold these values. It'll be an an integer array type. And it will return, what this right here does is gives you a memory address of where this whole object starts, and it puts that memory address in numbers. So when you say total array, calling it with numbers, let's say the number is 7211. 7211 goes in here for this variable called array. Now it has that memory address, so it knows where these things are located in memory. And it knows how big, when it looks to see where this is in memory, there's parts of it besides these numbers that tell how big it is and stuff. So, depending on, which array you send to it, you're really just sending the memory address of that array, which is captured by this variable. And again, it has to be an integer array variable. If it's some other memory address, it won't work. It has to match in type. It has to be an integer array object that you're sending to it. But you can send the address of any, as long as it's an integer array, you can send the address of any of them to it. And it takes that address and figures out where it is in memory, and then it, in this case, it adds up all the elements and returns them. So that's 6.5 minutes. That's not too bad. Basically, the long and short of this that you're supposed to get out of it is how do you pass an array to a method? Really two parts. The passing part, the calling, when you do the method call, you use the name of the method, and then just pass the name of the array. Notice there's no square brackets, nothing. You just use the name of the array, right? The variable name. You pass that. That's half of it. The other half is when you build the method, the parameter has to look like this. Data type, square brackets, name you want to use inside the method.